All right. So let's talk about parallel construction. Now, this was something that was, somebody asked me to look into this. It was Mike Applegate from our chat. And he asked me specifically to look into it because I know, and he always brings, we may not agree on everything, which is awesome. I love that. I love that we have people that come here and disagree and bring information and give us, things to look into. Always expanding knowledge. That's what we're here to do, is to learn with everybody. And he said he believes parallel construction is what's going on in this case. He thinks that Bryan Kohberger's the guy, but regardless of what you believe, if he is the guy or is not the guy, and there is apparently legal precedent set that makes this legal. Or at least, okay, for instance, you know how they claim in the Kohberger case that the DNA was just a tip, so they don't have to give over that evidence? Mm-hmm. That's been done in several cases using IgG, apparently, from what was cited in Becca Barlow's thing. Mm-hmm. She actually talked about it a little bit, it happening in another case, where they don't feel they have to give over this information because it's just a tip, which is dishonest. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of parallel construction in a way. But anyway, here, I need the definition here. Here we go. So, parallel construction, so let me just read this right here, this little part, and then we can talk about it. The prosecution can and does leave investigative steps out of probable cause affidavits, and PCAs can be written in a way that implies a chronology? Mm-hmm. I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying that right now, but you get it. Yep. Of investigative steps and obscures the chaotic and multi-pronged swirl of simultaneous methods and processing of leads. This is called parallel construction. Parallel construction is a law enforcement process of building a parallel or separate evidentiary basis for a criminal investigation in order to conceal how an investigation actually began. Yeah. To some extent, parallel construction is a giant lie of omission.
Yep. Okay, I got you now. Now I know. When you were bringing this up, I wasn't 100%. I knew of parallel construction. I mean, it defines it in its name. They're just constructing an opposite idea using separate tactics from the original storyline. That's
not
what
necessarily opposite, but it's like parallel realities in the investigation process. So this is where it began. And
by opposite, I just mean that if this is the real world step one, but it was done with something that they don't want to be transparent with, then this is the other step one. And it's opposing because there can only be one step one.
Yeah, sure. But so essentially they're on step 20, but they call it step one.
Right, yeah.
Is basically what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of seen, like you were alleging in the Becca Barlow thing that we just talked about, Bill Thompson may not be lying. He doesn't know, so therefore he can't say. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's I don't know why the word's leaving my mind right now.
Omission.
It's
I don't remember right now.
Yeah, I know it's on the tip of my tongue, but. If you guys are watching right now, you're probably putting it in the comments, shouting at me. Innocent by, it's like, I don't know. I can't remember right now.
Yeah.
But it's basically they don't know, so therefore they don't have to disclose.
Yep.
Right.
So essentially a prosecutor could come to a cop and be like, hey, do not tell me how you got to that. Do not tell me how you came to that. If you tell me, I have to disclose that. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So it says the prosecution likely would prefer not to present witnesses and evidence regarding forensic genealogy at trial because it adds complexity and is less specific than evidence they subsequently develop. Yeah.
Which I think is what we're seeing here.
With the DNA.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what That's why I keep going back to Othram. It doesn't make sense. You won't include a third party in that way and release the chain of custody of something that is so so necessary in a case to a third-party source. It didn't make sense. It has to be a major reason, and that major reason, I think, is because they did not find DNA or did not find DNA that was usable.
Yeah. I think that is what's going on.
That was a gamble.
It was.
And it's a smart gamble, dude. Like, I get it. I understand why they include Othram. I think if I was in that same situation, I would have done that too. But just be honest about it. And you can overcome that in the case. I understand the defense would, have a field day with that. But you can still lean on the fact that no matter what they say, we have evidentiary proof that this is this man's DNA.
Yeah. And by the way, I didn't mention, this is an article called Genetic Genealogy, Bryan Kohberger, and Parallel Construction in the Idaho4 Investigation, and it is on medium.com. So they specifically talk about a behind-the-scenes issue with law enforcement and the legal community and genealogy community about using genealogy in active versus cold cases, that there's kind of a butting of heads going on behind the scenes right now, which I think we can see that in the Kohberger case, but I don't know where they are getting that information from, because they do not say where they're getting that information from. But if that is true, that this is going on at a bigger level where all of these people are kind of butting heads, which honestly, I can kind of see it in that TED Talk we just were talking about, too, in the Bicca Barlow case, or, when we were talking about that topic, the partial profile. I think we're seeing that in those, and I've seen lawyers come out talking about this. I've seen genetic experts coming out talking about this. Not really law enforcement, though. It's mostly lawyers and genealogy experts that are coming out, calling out the processes and saying,
well, the cops wouldn't have to deal with that, so that makes sense.
They only use what they obtain from that situation, and then, the legal people, they have to worry about their clients.
Yeah, they hand it off.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. It says, the FBI, which has stood up its own genetic genealogy lab, specifically instructs police not to mention its use in arrest affidavits and legal filings. The argument is that it is merely a tip or lead or technique that once the suspect's actual DNA is gathered and other supporting evidence is amassed, is both irrelevant and a distraction. So that's interesting, thinking about it being standard for them to do that. If we help you out in this way, you have to say it's just a tip.
It just makes me think of the Idaho4 case in this way, okay? So they knew they used a funky way to get to the DNA, right? And I don't even think they were planning on using the STR. I don't think they were planning on using any of it based on their original request of search warrant for his apartment, his car, and his parents' home. When they got in there, they were like, there's nothing here.
They expected to find a lot more.
We have to use the DNA, otherwise we got nothing.
Yeah.
That's what I think. If that's what it is, right? And I'm not saying that's what I believe, but that's what I think when tracking this line of thinking.
Yeah.
If Bryan is innocent, and they said that they didn't want to include the DNA, they did not. DNA, the whole thing.
They said the sheath. The DNA
SNP,
from the sheath.
The DNA.
Yes, they did.
Meaning they didn't want to include the SNP or the STR. if they could
Andrea
get this
Burkhart
search
called
warrant.
that. She called that when that came out. She made a video on it.
So many people are saying things like, well, they're going to use the STR. They just didn't want to use the SNP. No.
Originally,
they
no.
didn't want to use any DNA.
Yeah, I think
None.
you're right. Originally, I don't think they wanted to. I think they were hoping that they would find victim DNA in his car. They were betting on it, absolutely. And Andrea Burkhart, she made a video on that warrant, that search warrant, and she's like, this is shady that they're saying, oh, we want to use this to search, but we do not want to bring this to trial.
Yeah.
She's like, she straight up called it and said, she's like, the only way I can see somebody doing something like this and putting this in a document like this is they obtained it illegally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
I
is
think
interesting.
It's very possible that either they obtained it illegally,
or it just looks very bad.
Or the way they obtained it will make them and the rest of their case look bad. Like not finding DNA, sending it to Othram, who then finds DNA and then sends them the profile back, which they then run through CODIS.
Also, like, cops are on scene, as we know, at like 11 something, right?
Yeah.
Or like it was basically noon, I believe. It was like 11:58. It was essentially noon.
That's when the call happened, so they didn't get there till like 12:20, I think, or something.
Okay, so noon is when they got there. Payne didn't get there till 4 hours later, and he is the one that found the sheath.
I know. Yeah, I know.
That is also very odd, and I don't want to jump to the conclusion that it's planted, but I think the defense will definitely be asking questions to determine something like that, if that could have happened here.
Oh, the defense is absolutely going to make it seem like that was planted. That's their job to do.
Oh, yeah, reasonable doubt, yeah.
Is ask what is going on here. Why were there 50 people in this house who didn't find it, and then 4 hours later, somebody found it?
The lead investigator on the case.
Yeah.
Shows up 4 hours later, and it magically appears somehow.
And the guy that's connected to Dr. Moore and Tolson.
And the latent shoe print was found sweep 2, which, granted, latent means it wasn't visible to the naked eye.
Yeah.
But it's a single footprint. And they said they tested it for blood. Now, why do you think that was included in the PCA? Because they do not include all evidence in a PCA, especially if it doesn't point towards their guy. So guaranteed there was evidence.
That's not always true. A lot of them do include all the evidence.
No, they don't.
Yeah, I understand there's this idea out there because some experts and lawyers have come on and say that, PCAs don't ever include all their evidence. They only include enough to arrest. That's not true. Look at Gilgo4 that has 2,500 pages in their PCA. They included all of it.
No, I believe they included all their evidence that points towards Bryan Kohberger. At that time, I think that is all that they had. But my point is that if they didn't think the latent shoe print pointed towards him, they wouldn't have included it because it's not evidence.
Yep, got it. Yep.
So they believe for some reason that points towards him. Why? Is it the same shoe size? Is it blood?
Yeah.
Because they tested it for blood. They did not say whether or not it was blood in the PCA, but they said they tested it for that.
That's interesting, yeah.
So why is there only one shoe print?
Mm-hmm.
Did the perpetrator step in blood with one shoe but not the other? So they took, what is going on? You know what I mean?
I've asked the same questions, and some people in the community have said it's because that is on a turn or whatever, and the friction of their foot, which I don't agree with, because they also would have made a sharper turn coming out of that hallway. So it doesn't add up for me. So I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know. I don't even have a theory. I have no clue. It's such a strange place and thing. I can't even come up with something. I've tried multiple times.
Or did they wipe their shoe off? So it was only like
I don't know.
Trace. I don't know. It's really strange. I don't know. I don't get it. But they have to feel like that pointed towards Kohberger, or they wouldn't have included it. It's also interesting that they say it's diamond shaped like a Vans, but he doesn't wear anything resembling that. I would be curious to see the shoes like that he wears. I know it was New Balance. Does New Balance ever come with a diamond shaped pattern?
No, New Balance or Nike, and they don't.
So I don't know, but a criminal could wear the wrong shoes to a crime scene.
Yep, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, in your commission of the crime, how you would commit the crime, that's what you said. You said you'd wear women's shoes.
I did. A few pairs of socks and women's shoes that are 2 sizes too small for my feet. And yes, it would have hurt, and yes, it is possible.
Yeah. You were talking about folding your toes over. That would be super painful.
No, under. Like curling your toes really tight and then sticking them in, and then you just loosen up the laces really loose at the toe, and then you tighten it up by the ankle. But yeah.
So this asks you a question: why is the Elantra key? 2 reasons. 1, why did the WSU officers immediately search for and find Kohberger's car in the parking lot within the hour of finding it in their database? There was reporting that there were 90 white Elantras registered at Idaho State alone. So why did this car get immediate action?
I think, me personally, think it's because of that one statement we listened to on Sleuthy Goosey's video. That is one of the local neighbors that said that they saw a white Elantra and they called it in. And you know what's super interesting? I don't know why I didn't put this together, okay? They said they saw a white Elantra at school and called it in and let them know about the white Elantra at school. He's the neighbor of somebody who had a white Elantra. Why did he not say he called in their Elantra?
Like, why didn't he call in his neighbor's Elantra instead of a random one at the school?
Right. That's strange.
Did he say when he saw that Elantra parked there? Was it...
I'll have to go back and listen. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know. But it seems convenient. You know?
Yeah, it does.
It just makes me ask, it makes me want to know more. It doesn't necessarily mean there's something shady going on there, but it makes me want to know.
So did that guy live in Moscow or Pullman?
Yep, Moscow. Moscow.
It says, then 2, at what point where Moscow police ask fellow law enforcement to keep an eye out for a white Elantra, it was specifically for the 2011-2013 model, which Kohberger did not have. And this also says, more specifically, when and why the FBI analysis expanded his expert opinion from 2011-2013 to 2011-2016, which is also another interesting thing that doesn't make sense.
I know.
Which is actually another red flag in my head towards the FBI, but what would you... Like, what... So you don't think that's on the FBI's back?
What?
The fact that their expert said it was a 2011-2013?
Are we sure it was their expert? I just haven't looked into this. I'm not trying to give excuses. You guys know how I feel. If I don't see it with my own 2 eyes, I don't believe it.
I mean, that's what was stated in the
court docs. It says that the FBI expert.
I don't know about court docs, but I'm pretty sure in the Moscow PD updates, when they sent that stuff out, they said that an FBI expert or something. I don't know.
Moscow said it.
Yeah. I mean, you have kind of a point there, but...
If it was an FBI expert, which are some of the best scientists in the world, criminology scientists in the world, came out and said that it's a 2011 to 2013, I tend to believe them. Now, did Moscow get a tip and choose to alter, it's only a couple years, should we just change that 2013 to a 2016 and we got our guy bros?
So this
is that possible?
So basically, maybe. what they're basically saying here, okay, just to sum it up, is that the defense should have noticed that immediately. The fact that it was changed like that and said, okay, they already had Kohberger's name. Like, that's why they changed it. And it's another reason to believe that IGG was used. That is what gave them the, like, official tip. Like, they got the tip from IGG, which is why they changed the date of the car to fit Kohberger's car. They thought it was a 2011, 2013. They got IGG, which they consider super credible. It's DNA. So they change it to the year of Kohberger's car. And they don't tell the public, of course.
What? Okay.
What's going on?
Let me throw a completely different theory out there, okay? What if the FBI isn't the ones who gave that information? What if the Moscow and ISP literally failed this case? They blew it up because they didn't follow the proper protocols. They weren't managing the crime scene effectively. They didn't gather evidence effectively. They literally blew this case up, okay? Everyone around there knows that can't not happen. This couldn't go cold. That school wouldn't be around anymore. Literally, it would be gone.
Yeah, true.
So they hand everything they have over to Bill. And Bill's like, oh my gosh, this is awful. This is such a mess.
I mean,
this is insane how awful of an investigation this is. I've never seen something so awful in my life. So Bill says, I might be able to fix this. Let me call my contacts at the FBI. Hey, I have one of the worst cases I've ever seen in my life. Can I use you guys as expert witnesses to say that you approved some of this information that we got? I don't know. Is that possible? And the FBI literally wasn't involved?
But the FBI was on scene.
Yeah, but the FBI was also working the biggest case ever in the state's history of drugs.
But don't you think it's...
That was an FBI investigation.
You know, it's not really typical for that many FBI agents to show up to something like this.
I mean, yeah, it is. It's quadruple homicide, and they're only like 20 minutes away.
So you think there's nothing weird with that?
I do not, no. I think they were already in the area working on the drug case.
Yeah, but had that been busted before or after?
It got busted roughly about 30 days after.
Okay.
They were already there.
Okay, then I feel like that is... Do you think then they showed up like, oh, a quadruple homicide? That kind of sounds like drug activity.
It could be tied to our thing.
It could be tied to our thing. So let's just go check it out. And then because they already checked it out, they were like, well, we'll continue supporting your investigation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And you know what's interesting is I know there's this claim that the FBI was the one at the house, watching the house. How do we know that they weren't like, yeah, you know, I mean, can we store one of our trailers there? When they were trying to come up with it, hey, can we use you to you know, bring this case home?
But Bill Thompson was also on scene very early on in the case too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's not
literally
weird to
at
me.
the crime scene.
That's not that weird to me.
Yeah,
we knew it was going to Bill.
But he would know a lot of things being on scene there with the investigators. He may not know everything.
Not investigation stuff. Not like the science, you know.
Right. And that stuff takes time too.
So he probably wanted to see the scene on what he was going to be prosecuting. Yeah. That's not uncommon. You actually found that out. Because so many people were... This was a while ago. This was a couple months ago. So many people were saying how shady that is that Bill was there. You were the one that found all the information saying it wasn't shady.
Yeah.
That prosecutors are on scene a lot.
Yeah, I wasn't saying it's shady. That wasn't my point of bringing it up. I'm saying that he would... Because he is active and he was there at the scene, that he would know what like where the police are headed anyway. Now, he may not know the science, but you're alleging that your theory was that they blew it up and handed it all to him and was like, help.
Yeah.
He was there. He should have been able to see, like, somewhat.
I don't know about that.
You don't know if he could know something like that?
No.
Well, I guess they don't really typically
He's not
prosecute.
involved in the investigation.
Well, also, they don't really typically prosecute cases like this in that area. Maybe if he was like working on murder cases regularly, he would see some signs like something's not right.
Yeah.
But
what? Okay, going back to your original topic, what was Mike bringing this up for? Just to let people know that this happens a lot, and
yes,
it is legal, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And that he thinks that's exactly what's happening in the Kohberger case.
They admit it. I'm glad Mike brought it up, because it lands a bigger boom when you can name exactly what's going on. So I think this is a super good video, but they've essentially admitted it already.
Why do you think that?
We don't want to show you our work for the DNA.
Okay.
We don't want to. We don't want you to talk about the IgG trees. We don't want you to talk about how we connect dots in our system.
Yeah.
They're literally coming forward and saying, no, we aren't going to show you.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, that's why I brought that up pretty early on, was them not wanting to show that. I think that's a pretty big deal and indicator that that's what's going on here. I mean, I guess you're right. They've admitted to it, essentially.
Yeah.
Essentially, yes.
And I wonder if we're going to get anything back from the FBI. And here's the reason why. We don't have... Okay, so I can't let go of Dr. Moore. I cannot.
I can't either.
It's too good of evidence, and it's proof, and it's not arguable. And they are in the process of going through an IA investigation, internal affairs investigation, and being sued and being held accountable in a court of law for manipulating and fraudulently staging evidence. Okay, these cops are dirty that were involved with it. It's not opinion. In that investigation, they claimed they used the FBI. They did not. The FBI was never involved in it. Not once, not one time. They're claiming they used the FBI here. Have we seen anything legitimately real come from them? Or are they saying that the 70 FBI agents that were involved is actually what the drug agents locally are?
Maybe, but there was an FBI tip line.
There was. Yeah.
So they were working on tips and stuff, but I don't know.
There's weight behind throwing around FBI.
Yeah, there is.
So,
because they have so much more resources than
technology,
a local PD.
advancements. Yeah. And again, I go back to, do we really think that the FBI doesn't have what Othram has?
Oh, yeah. They probably do.
So then why did they include Othram and not the FBI?
Right.
That would have solved everything.
Well, I don't know.
It would have.
The FBI works with Othram.
No, I mean...
They literally use Othram.
Yeah, on cold cases.
Yeah.
On cold cases. On cases that aren't important anymore, don't require leading edge technology or anything like that. And the only reason that they work with Othram, give me an example of something else. The only reason they work with Othram is because Othram needs their database to confirm the information that they find. So actually, Othram needs the FBI, not the other way.
Well, Othram is leading tech. They are using like industry leading tech and technology and new processes. Like they are using.
And we think Othram has more tech than the FBI?
Yeah, that's a good point.
No.
I mean, the Pharaoh scans are also interesting. I see rumblings of a federal case is what I'm hearing from lots of other people too, that they feel the FBI is about to come in and take this case from the state.
Yeah.
Or if he...
Or the FBI is literally investigating these officers. I think that is real. And that is not conspiracy, tin hat type stuff. Because of the Dr. Moore case.
Yeah, it's possible.
The Dr. Moore case was truly one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life.
And they could see signs of it here. Yeah, that's possible.
Do you think the FBI likes having their name thrown around when they aren't actually helping?
Right.
Do you think the FBI's like, oh yeah, that's cool, fraudulently throw us under the bus with Dr. Moore and use our names?
The person who's writing this article, which is really interesting, and I think everybody should go read it. I think there's some things that in this have been proven wrong in some instances because it's written earlier this year. But, they place the investigators knowing who Kohberger is at November 29th, way before we heard that thing from Bill Thompson.
No way.
That date precisely is when they think they knew who Kohberger was. And they also think that they had this... they ignored all the blood evidence, okay, that was everywhere, searching it for the suspect's DNA, and only did the knife sheath because they thought that's the most credible piece. Like, it has to be the person's. They had to have used this. And that they used that and also got this lead on a car. They saw it in the footage. It didn't have a front license plate. They find it out that it's at the university. And these things are happening simultaneously. And they get the probable cause after Kohberger's already left town. And that they knew who he was by November 29th. And it's interesting. I mean, it's a type of tunnel vision, essentially. And they go on to state that they much prefer granular investigations as opposed to like a heroic narrative of parallel constructions. And they're interested in fact-based coverage and discussions. And I agree with that. Absolutely. It also goes on to allege that law enforcement has used parallel construction to obscure the actual sources of critical evidence from view for decades. This practice denies defendants and defense attorneys multiple avenues to challenge the admissibility of evidence, the credibility of informants, and the legality of hidden aspects of the investigation.
Yeah.
And it's a problem. And even though I have heard from multiple sources this is used a lot. This technique is used a lot to hide things within their investigations.
They're investigating for the court case, not to prove truth.
Right. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, honestly, just being transparent about these things, I think could fix a lot, because some things will look a whole lot shadier if they're uncovered than if you were just honest about it.
Yeah.
Say Kohberger's the guy and they really do know that for certain. Doing this whole thing of not turning over discovery, not being honest about where you got this information is just, it's creating all this speculation and could honestly get a murderer off.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know. I want to know what you guys think, if that's what's going on here, that they've built a narrative where they were really at like step 20 in the investigation and just called it step 1.
Yeah.
And they're saying this is our line of investigation, but really it started way back at this time. They're just not telling us any of that.
Yeah. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether he's innocent or guilty, that doesn't matter.
Right.
That does not matter in this. What matters is that our justice system is being managed right. Our police are being managed honestly, doing things the honest way to find honest, truthful evidence.
I agree. And knowing how subjective the DNA is at this point really has me concerned. Like, if we're ever going to know the truth. If he gets off on this, are we ever going to know who did this? For sure.
Yeah.
It's a sad thought. But, yeah, let us know what you think.